Take a photo of that. Video it.
Oh, stop talking.
Thank you for joining me here for our penguin talk and feed this afternoon. You'll see the penguins are starting to make their way down, some with a little more finesse than others. But before I do talk about the penguins, I am briefly going to mention the two species that we have here in the facility, why I do feel they tend to get a little bit overlooked. So we'll start things today, I think, with my beautiful English terns. So let's get those down for a bit of food. There we go. So like the terns, this is our shores here in Britain. These guys are members of the gull family, so they're seabirds. And well, although they look very different to the birds that you see here in the UK, which are predominantly white in colour, they do actually come all the way from South America. So they come from countries like Peru and Chile if you want to see them in the wild. Now, mixed in amongst the main flock, you'll notice that there are some birds with a sort of chocolatey brown colour. Well, believe it or not, those are this year's juveniles, so this year's babies. So some of them actually only hatched out a couple of months ago, and already, as you can see, they're doing everything that a tern should be doing and having a very active existence. They're fishing for themselves. There's still a few chances out there that like to beg for fish from mum and dad, but most of them are independent now, and hopefully will go on to breed next year. So it takes approximately a year, sometimes a little bit more, to change into their adult plumage, and this is true of many birds. Most of them don't get their adult plumage straight away. They do have a juvenile period. So the terns in the wild will hunt by attacking shoals of fish that are pushed up close to the surface by predators from below. And they can plunge dive a little way, but they prefer not to do this if at all possible. I think they're a bit precious about getting their feathers wet, so they prefer to just skim the surface and pick the fish off that way. They will also scavenge from carcasses floating in the water or offal thrown overboard from fishing vessels, and will even sometimes actually approach the kills of things like sea lions to pick up the scraps there, although presumably from a safe distance. So they do have quite a varied diet. Here they do they share the scraps with penguins who enjoy themselves. They also get sort of separate trays of fish with some different types of fish in them, sometimes chopped carp and small mice too, so quite a varied diet that they enjoy. Now over to my left hand side, they're snoozing up on the beach in their usual location. I have to say they're not the most energetic birds. You'll see my lovely common eider ducks. Now the males are the black and white with a little splodge of green on the nape of their neck, and the females you'll see are a warm tawny brown colour with very dense black barring. Now, one of the best things I think about the common eider duck is actually that it's one of our own native species. So not only can you see them and get really nice close views and hear it at the zoo, but you can also keep your eyes peeled and see them in the wild here in Britain. Now actually this time of year is the best time to see them, which is contrary to what you might think. We usually think of all the sort of exciting birds turning to the summer, but very often that's not the case. Lots of migrants have to do in the winter time, and so this is a great time to do a bit of bird watching, even on the beach like myself. So the common eider ducks at this time of year will be coming down from their breeding grounds in the Arctic, so they nest in the very far north. The winter period for them is time for them all to generally have a bit of relaxation before they head back up north for the busy breeding season ahead. So at the moment you do see eider ducks right down here in the south of England in Bristol, but it's easy to see them usually in the north. In fact, some terns do actually breed in Scotland and potentially as well the north of England. And although ducks I think are a bit underrated, we do have some fantastic colours and varieties, lots of interesting life habits, etc. They are sort of widely underrated, I think, and not recognised for their many beautiful and interesting behaviours. But the common eider duck certainly ranks, I think, as being one of the cooler birds. What happens is, in flight, they're actually faster than a peregrine falcon going along on the level there. So they're very powerful birds. You'll see at the front end they're well built up with lots of muscle, and that's a powerhouse full of energy. So you can see we do also have a juvenile. The juvenile is a brown one closest to me on the left hand side. So that bird was actually bred in the enclosure this year, and this is the first time for many years that we've actually bred eiders here at Bristol. So we were really chuffed to have that one join the ranks. We won't know immediately whether it's a male or female. Again, as with most birds, it takes a period of time before it takes on its adult plumage. So the common eider ducks or European eider ducks, one of our British birds. Now this motley bunch here before me are my lovely African penguins. And we've got 59 birds here at Bristol at the moment, including 3 fairly small chicks. And you'll be pleased to know that most of the penguins here are in stable, loving and long-term relationships. We've got a roughly 50-50 split of the boys and the girls. And if you have a look around the enclosure, you'll see little kind of bomb shelters, and those are actually their nest boxes. So although we've got pairs sitting on eggs just now, and as I say, rearing chicks, the remaining birds that have adopted a nest box do tend to spend most of their time in it anyway. They kind of treat them very much like a little house. And pairs will defend them against all comers, including myself, when I go around to do the nest check. So you can get quite feisty in doing so. In fact, at the moment we're having a period of slightly aggressive behaviour. That's because a lot of the pairs have kind of kicked into breeding mode. So I think hormones and tensions are running quite high. So I'm fully expecting some sort of scrap to break out later on. We've had absolute carnage over the last few days, with one penguin being unceremoniously bunged down the rock face right in the middle of the talk, which did stir things up rather. So if you do see them fighting a bit, don't worry too much. They very rarely actually hurt each other, even though it can look quite nasty. Now, speaking of chicks and breeding, in the water there you'll see one little penguin that isn't black and white like the others, and he tends to sort of stay floating above the water rather than ducking underneath it. And this is actually the chick of one of my favourite penguins here at Bristol, number 19. And number 19's chick, or 19 junior, has only actually fledged about 4 days ago, so he's in his very first stages of learning how to do all those cool things like swim and hang around waiting for fish from me. So he does look a little bit bemused perhaps, but he's done a lot better than most of our young penguins. Usually they come out sort of one day and they get so terrified by everything else and all the other birds in the enclosure that they then retreat back into their nest box for a week. But 19 junior, well, he's one of the boys already. He's been having a good old scrap. I haven't seen him once with his mum and dad actually. He seems to be hanging out with everybody else. He's obviously too cool for his parents. But obviously he's getting fed still, so that's the main thing. But he's doing really well. So he's the newest recruit if you want to keep your eyes peeled for him swimming around. Now, although the penguins breed here all year round, out in their native country, Africa, I'm afraid the story is a happy one. And like penguins all over the world, though,
I think it's just realised it's dinner time.
Precious, and they are now an endangered species. And I know we hear this word a lot. We hear the word endangered and kind of, it's easy to get a little bit complacent about it. But to give you a realistic estimate of just how much of a future this bird has, well, we're really expecting it to hit extinct perhaps within the next 10 to 15 years. The population has declined by over 90% in the last century, so there is a massive drop towards oblivion, unfortunately. And the main reasons for that currently are lack of food. So despite the fact that the African penguin historically has faced a number of different pressures, including things like egg collection and the removal of their guano or bodies, which they do use as a nesting substrate, don't knock it till you've tried it. But actually removing the thick layer of food that builds up on the beaches reduces the number of suitable nesting sites, so it makes life quite difficult for the penguins. Now, at the moment, egg fishing is really the key problem, and perhaps you've heard about this in the media. It's basically the industrial way now in which our oceans can be cleared of their fish stocks. It's indiscriminate, it's wasteful, and it certainly isn't sustainable. So not only are animals like the penguins and all the other marine life that we enjoy and cherish so much facing a very bleak future, but as are the people, because actually we rely very heavily on the resources that the oceans provide. So if we overexploit them, then they're going to swim out rather than quickly than they would if we tried to be more sustainable. So what's happening now is during the breeding season, adults are raising chicks, but they're actually not able to gather enough food to give those chicks a really good start in life. And so many young penguins at the end of the season, like 19 junior there, he's just fledging, he's chilling out, he's learning what it's all about. But out in the wild, well, he probably wouldn't be having it so easy.
That grey one on the water,
learn how to fish quickly. You just get mollycoddled rather here at the zoo. Mum and dad are still around, and it's all too easy to just pop over and beg for a bit more fish. But out in the wild, he'd be making it on his own, and it will be quite tough. So they do need to have some fat reserve to get them through that difficult time. Because learning how to swim and how to fish all in one go, it must be awfully difficult. So if they don't have some reserve to put them through, then their chances of survival are pretty low, especially when there aren't that many fish around either. The second problem is actually climate change. Again, something that we'll have all heard about in the media. And climate change is affecting the distribution of fish in our ocean. So African penguins are traditionally nested in areas where they've got good access to to shoulder their two primary species of fish to eat, and those are anchovies and sardines. You'll see here at the zoo that they're actually not getting anchovies or sardines, they're getting a small fish called sprat. But out in the wild, I think those two more familiar fish will pretty much really form the sort of primary part of their diet. And that does put them into conflict with people. Unfortunately, we're competing with them now for those resources. There isn't enough left for the penguins to go back and feed their chicks. And climate change is meaning that fish aren't actually gathering close to the penguin breeding grounds anymore. So not only are there fewer fish, they're in different places, and therefore it's not easy for the penguins to collect them.
He must have had enough now.
Now, just by visiting the zoo today, you can see that it have already made a contribution towards the conservation of the African penguin. Bristol Zoo works closely with the charity called Bangkok that operates from South Africa. And well, what they do, oh, he's begging now. If you listen, you might hear a little whistling noise. That's his mum, number 21. She's so suspiciously looking at me like, oh, are you going to throw the fish? Might go over and feed him if you watch her. But Bangkok in South Africa,
that one is without any markings there, the food option is front.
See how they're getting along, and if the chicks aren't making good progress, if they're not gaining weight and looking to be on track for fledging time, then they will actually remove them and take them into their rehabilitation centre for hand rearing. These hand reared birds are then subsequently released back into the wild, and it gives them a much better start. They have access to much more food than they would with their parents, who are obviously struggling if they're not able to keep up with feed for their babies. Some couples also rescue injured and oiled penguins and take them into the rehabilitation centre, and each bird that passes through that centre is marked with an identification badge, just like the ones you can see our birds here at Bristol wearing. In fact, they were developed here at Bristol. If you have a look around the enclosure today, you may notice perhaps some birds are looking very fat, very sort of fluffy with lots of tufty feathers, oh no. Oh no, don't bite him. And they're actually going through their moult, so it's perfectly natural, but they do put on quite a lot of weight before they molt. They literally almost double in size, massive undersize, 5 chins. It must be quite a tough time to be a penguin, but the reason that they can put this weight on is because once they start to lose their feathers, they're waterproof because of the tax anymore, and they can't actually hunt, so they need to build up reserves in the 2 weeks or so it takes to change over. So the difficulty that we have with the bands is that during that time when they've battened up, their flippers expand, and if you place anything on the flippers that's restricted, it could actually damage the limb or potentially impair the bird's ability to swim. So the great thing about these bands is they stretch during the molt, but then they're not so loose afterwards that they can slide down and either fall off or ultimately get caught on other objects or potentially around the bird itself. So there's quite a lot of thoughts gone into it. It took many times and many different years to kind of develop it, but we have been successful, and these are now being used on wild birds. So if you sort of have enjoyed seeing my penguins today and learning a little bit more about them, I'm afraid I've got a terrible cold, I don't know if you can tell, so I am feeling a bit foggy-headed, I'm afraid. But if anybody wants to pop round and ask some questions afterwards, that's fine, I might get a little bit more coherent. But please, when you're doing your weekly shopping, do try and look out for the Marine Stewardship Council label now. This means that fish that you buy is from sustainable source and isn't having a negative impact on animals like the African penguin. You're looking for a blue logo with a white fish symbol in it and the letters MSC. And by buying that, you're using your buying power to promote sustainable fishing and hopefully enabling a better future for not only ourselves but also the birds as well. If you want to get more involved and get your hands dirty, you can actually come into the enclosure with me here at Bristol Zoo and feed my lovely penguins as part of either the penguin experience or Keep for the Day experience. Keep for the Day particularly great. It involves going around behind the scenes of all the different sections here at the zoo and meeting lots of our lovely animals. So very memorable day out and a great way to contribute to our conservation efforts, not just the African penguins but all over the world. So thank you very much. Sorry, slightly froggy talk there, but do pop round if you have any questions or if there's anything you want me to clarify for you. Thank you for your attention. Field Book and Feed begins next door at 3:30, so do stick around for that. I'd probably try and grab a place quickly. It seems quite busy today, and this is always very popular.